When Jose Luis Finn Williams was shot and killed in Dorchester last October, he was just a few days shy of his 68th birthday. The attack, which police say happened on the 6th after 11:30 p.m. outside Fabian gas station on Washington Street, was one of 3 fatal shootings in Boston that weekend and what turned out to be one of the deadliest months in the city last year. And police were quick to arrest the suspect. 21-year-old Kevin Williams was picked up shortly after the Saturday night shooting, less than a mile from the scene of the crime, because police say his appearance matched a witness description. Police later said surveillance video corroborated the visual match down to a pair of Hilfiger underwear, and that the witness later identified him as the shooter. And although he and his family said he was home with his mother at the time of the shooting, Kevin Williams was charged with unlawful possession of a gun, attempted robbery, and assault with intent to murder, and was held without bail. 5 weeks later, the Suffolk District Attorney's Office, under then acting DA John Pappas, released this statement. Investigators have reviewed phone records, surveillance video, and other electronic data, executed search warrants, interviewed multiple witnesses, and have generated substantial evidence and now warrant the defendant's release. Kevin Williams went home on November 10th, and about a week later, prosecutors dropped all of the charges against him.
I'm happy, I'm very happy. They freed an innocent gentleman.
But the DA's office stopped short of a full exoneration, saying in a statement that prosecutors concluded that the evidence was insufficient to establish guilt or innocence. And this week, after the state charged a new suspect, 26-year-old Gregory Simmons, with Jose Williams' murder, new District Attorney Rachel Rollins declined to comment further on the initial case against Kevin Williams. Kevin's mother, Regina Hunter, good to meet you, Regina. Thank you for being here. And Michael Curry, who's joined us many times before in his capacity as leader of the NAACP. Michael, thank you for being here, too.
Thanks for having me.
So Kevin spent 5 weeks in jail for a murder he didn't commit. 2 days ago, he learned that there's now a suspect arrested for the crime. How is your son on April 11th?
Angry, you know. When I get that question so much, I tell people, how would you feel? You know, you're sitting there, you know you didn't do it, they know you didn't do it, they knew when it happened that you didn't do it, and they're still refusing to say that you didn't do it. So they're still letting this cloud hang over my son's head when they arrested another suspect. And as you said, back then they kept saying that they had my kid on video, and I kept telling them to show and prove because I knew they didn't. And now they're talking about a masked man. I don't think they know what's going on. When
your son was arrested, he had never had a record, nothing, right? Is that correct?
You know, he had operating under, you know, he had a couple of vehicle things, but they were dismissed, you know, kid stuff. He never, no.
Is the family's concern, Michael, here the original arrest? I mean, do you think the police and DA acted unreasonably? It sounds like you do. Yeah. Or is it the failure to exonerate Kevin after the fact, or both? Which is it?
I think it's all the above. I think, first of all, it speaks to the broader theme around how our process works, our criminal justice system works. They arrested Kevin based on very suspect evidence. It was a masked robbery. There was no clear identification of the gentleman who robbed the gas station and killed Mr. Williams.
They said there was a witness that identified.
And the witness was a witness of clothing. And, you know, there's always suspect witness. Even if they see your face, there's a question as to whether how accurate that
So why did they arrest Kevin?
Yeah.
I was on the scene.
Why would they arrest him?
They said that the person identified his head shape, his clothing, and his skin color, because they couldn't identify his face. But Kevin, we told them, Kevin had just walked out of my home. There are City of Boston cameras right on the corner that we told them that night to pull that would show that Kevin just walked out of our home, and they did.
I read about that video in the Dorchester Reporter, and if I remember my timing right, you suggested that the video that captured him outside leaving your house was taken 11 minutes after the actual shooting.
Correct.
And it's, what, almost a mile away to get to the gas station.
And he would have had to get rid of a mask, get rid of a gun, and then Kevin is asthmatic, so he would have had to flee down. So
why did they arrest your son?
When we were on the scene, I I got the phone call because Kevin walked out of my door and he walked to a female friend's house. She called me and said that they had Kevin on the stairs. When I went over there, I asked them, why did they stop my son? Because at this point, we didn't even know that something had happened up there. They said that he fit the clothing description. But they said, the officers on the scene, they had it called over the walkie that the person had on all black. Kevin didn't have on all black that night.
So why do you think they did it then?
I think they thought that they had an easy pickup, and I think that they thought that they were going to snatch a young black male off of the street. And a lot of our kids in our community don't have the support that they need to fight this.
And
Do you think he was racially? I read you a quote in the Globe saying you think there was racial profiling
absolutely,
here.
Absolutely.
What does that mean?
I think, it's interesting because I think, and people don't like the comparisons, but I think they're accurate. When you think about Central Park 5 and the rape and brutal beating of the woman in New York in Central Park, or the Stewart murder case here, there's a rush to judgment. And police sometimes, and I always call it, they get stuck on stupid. We all can get stuck on stupid. But then you have to identify when you've made a mistake. They weren't willing to do that. They snatched a young man off the street because they wanted to solve this murder and this crime quickly. It was the wrong man.
So you think it was intentional? I mean, do you think it was an intentional mistake, or do you think sloppiness, a rush to judge? I mean,
I don't know if it
think
matters.
it's a little bit of everything,
Yeah.
but I do believe that weekend there were so many shootings and there were so many killings that they were under pressure and they felt that they had to put a face on a suspect.
Did you ever, John Pappas, who was, John was his first name, right? Pappas, I think, who was the acting DA after Dan Conley stepped down. That statement, carefully crafted to say not exonerate either. Did you ever ask him, did you ever approach him or any of his people as to why they made that statement? Did either of you do that?
So I talked to him prior to the statement that was made. Basically, I called the mayor, the police commissioner, and the acting DA.
And what year?
Within the weeks that he was arrested, just to say that you've made a mistake and this is going to be a black mark on all of your agencies and the mayor and the city, really the city.
But that was before they determined that it was time to release Kevin. Once they determined, what I don't understand here at all is they made a mistake. You're not sure if it's intentional, non-intentional, whatever it is. They made a mistake. They release your son. This is even before they arrested this Simmons this guy a couple of days ago. Why go out of your way to say it? Neither there's insufficient evidence to establish guilt or innocence. Why not just say he didn't do it?
I think it goes back to that stuck on stupid point, though, right? Is you got to be able to identify when you made a mistake and admit that it's a mistake, and then correct that. So you have a young man who now has a record with the arrest, and that there's been no formal apology to the family for it. The police department, the DA's office owe this family an apology and to clear his name.
But
before you continue, I want to say what your kid, I love this, said about you, by the way. This is during a press conference on November 16th after the charges were dropped. Here's Kevin talking about this woman. Here he is.
My mom's an animal. She puts her heart into everything.
Well, it's so clear. I just met you a couple of minutes ago, but I've read a lot about you, and I wouldn't call you an animal, but I would say you are clearly relentless. I've had Rachel Rollins here a couple of times, and she's like a total disruptor of traditional criminal justice. We reached out to her as well. She sent us, her office sent us today, the original statement from Pappas and a statement that they released a day or two ago about this guy who was the new suspect. Not a word about Kevin Williams. What's that about in your estimation?
I can't even, I don't even know.
Have you attempted to speak to her?
Me and Rachel will talk.
What does that mean?
I respect Rachel a lot.
I know,
think
but
that she...
It sounds like you're not answering my question. Have you reached out to her?
Have I reached out to her? Rachel knows that I would like to have a sit down and talk to her.
You know them. I mean, you mentioned before you have a relationship with the mayor. You obviously have a relationship with Willie Gross, the commissioner.
Rachel knows this case, and before she took the DA office, she was familiar with the case. I spoke to her directly. And she said she would get to the bottom of it and she would address it when she took office. So we're waiting for that process.
So you're convinced that she is looking at this?
I know that Rachel, her compass, her civil rights compass, her attorney compass is there, and she'll do the right thing.
What are you looking for? I mean, obviously you want full exoneration. That's obvious.
I want his record expunged.
And is an apology is that enough for you or him, or is that enough?
I want my son's record expunged. I don't want it sealed because them sealing it means that cops can still take a look at it.
Okay, and if they expunge it and if they apologize to him and the family, is that enough or is there more you want here?
Well, I think from Regina and Kevin, and I credit to Regina and Kevin on this point, that is broader than them. They understand that this could be happening to other young men and women in our community.
So what has to happen?
And thank God for people like Regina who had a network of family and friends to help.
So you seem to be saying that you do want more. The family does want more.
Some systemic changes around not claiming that you have the murderer when you don't prove it. And I think initially they claimed that they had the murderer and they hadn't done the work to prove that.
It's one thing. I understand, I think, maybe I don't, what this does to a young man like this. What does this do to his mother? I mean, what was it like for you, first of all, for the 5 weeks while he was in jail and the charges were still pending? What was it like for you?
Wasn't sleeping, wasn't eating, and then I am trying to continue to work because I had lost my sister in July. So I took 3 weeks off to get her children situated, so I didn't have any vacation time. So I'm trying to function. But I'm also on the phone with Mike. I have a slew of girlfriends that are lawyers. And it was go time. We were making sure, our motto was, what do we have to do to bring Kevin home? Because we all knew that Kevin didn't do it. And it was a matter of, and people just kept telling me that he's going to be there up to 2 years before he even goes to trial. And that was not acceptable for me.
Well, you got him home. Now you go get justice. It sounds like you're on your way. It's really good to meet you. And Michael, thank you for your time as always.
Thank you.
Good luck, Regina.
Thank you.
Say hi to Kevin for us,
I will.
please.